Hey guys, how are you? Big Sean Madigan and from Dudes of Kung Fu podcast and from Big JKD in New York. And your Shifu Anthony had asked me to give you guys a little bit of a primer on how I teach Jeet Kune's 5 ways of attack. I kind of feel like I specialize in strategy overall. That's like my big thing, is helping fighters with strategy and tactics. And I think that to me, Jeet Kune is a phenomenal martial arts because of the inherent strategy involved in it, the 5 ways of attack. So a little bit about myself. I did Jeet Kune for a long time before I met my Sifu, Steve Golden, who I've been under now for about 20 years. So Steve is trained with Bruce Lee in the LA Chinatown School, and my first exposure to understanding the importance of the 5 ways of attack was a phone call I received from Steve Golden out of the blue. I had a pretty popular Jeet Kune website up, and it would get tons of hits, and I started exchanging emails with Steve, and he would give me some ideas on how to change the website and make it more correct, less bullshit on it. And so one day Steve called me up, and I was really excited to talk to an original student of Bruce Lee, and it was really cool. And he said to me, so Sean, do you know the 5 ways of attack? So I said, of course I know the 5 ways of attack. And he said, well, which of the 5 ways do you know the best? And I said, I thought about it for a couple minutes, and I said, progressive indirect attack, PIA. I felt like I knew that one better than I knew the rest. And he was like, all right, great, progressive indirect attack, awesome. When do you use it? And I was like, when do you use it? Like, what the fuck kind of question is this? Well, when do you use it? So I was thinking about it. I was like, wow, when do I use it? I use it, so I said, well, I use it like I fake high, come back low, or fake low with a fake low kick, come back high. And he said, no. Those are examples of you using it. When do you use it? And I'm like, oh, okay, when do I use it? I get you now. I use it when I want to create an opening. I'm like, this is, that sounds good, right? And he says, oh, yeah, very good. You use it when you want to create an opening. Absolutely wrong. And I'm like, absolutely wrong? I'm like, why am I absolutely wrong? And he's like, well, Sean, when would you not want to create an opening? And I'm like, well, no, I guess you always want to create openings. And he said, well, if you always want to create openings and you use PIA when you want to create more, so then you only use PIA? You don't really need the other 4? That Bruce Lee was just wasting his time? I'm like, no. I'm like, well, that all right. So I'm like, that can't be it. All right. And he says, well, conversely, is there any stance in the martial art, in any martial art, that doesn't have an opening? He said, we only have 2 arms, 2 legs. Every stance has an opening somewhere. I'm like, oh, I agree. He goes, well, if every stance already has an opening, and you use PIA when you want to create openings, then what you're saying is that PIA is really a waste of time. Because if every stance already has an opening, and you use PIA to create openings, it's redundant. That Bruce Lee really was wasting his time with PIA. It was being redundant. And I said, well, no, that's not true. So he said to me, can we just agree that maybe you don't know when to use PIA? And I says, I guess you're right. I don't know when to use PIA. And he said, well, then can we also agree that if you don't know when to use a certain strategy, that it's kind of useless to you? That if you can't use it, if you don't know when to use it in a fight, then it's just theoretical bullshit. And theoretical bullshit doesn't help you when you're exchanging blows. And I'm like, no, you're right, And he said, well, and if you don't know when to use it, then you don't know it at all. And I'm like, no, I agree 100%. I don't know it at all. He goes, and the first question I asked you was, which of the 5 ways did you know the best? And you said PIA, and we've now established that you don't know anything about PIA. So it's safe to say you don't know anything about the 5 ways, right? And I was like, heartbroken, but I'm like, yeah, I guess so. And he's here, let me read you something, Sean. And this is what he read me. He wrote, "My mind is made up to start a system of my own. I mean a system of totality, embracing all, yet guided with simplicity. It will concentrate on the root of things, rhythm, timing, distance, and embrace the 5 ways of attack. Wing Chun is the starting point, Chi Sao is the nucleus, and they are all supplemented by the 5 ways." And I was like, wow, what was that? And he said, that was a letter that Bruce Lee wrote to Taki Kimura explaining his idea of starting the system of Jeet Kune Do. Now, here was a letter that Bruce Lee wrote. And in this letter, he's saying at the very root of Jeet Kune Do is rhythm, timing, distance, and the 5 ways of attack. And I have now established that I knew nothing about the 5 ways of attack. It was kind of safe to say I didn't know anything about Jeet Kune Do then. And man, this was like a blow to me. Because again, I was doing Jeet Kune Do for years at this point. And I was a little upset, So it started a now 20-odd year obsession of mine with trying to understand everything I can about the distance, timing, rhythm, and the 5 ways of attack. And Steve acted as my guide. And I really feel like if you're going to be a fighter who does Jeet Kune Do, you have to know this. This is something that separates us from the masses. It also separates us, and now you, from most of JKD. Because most of JKD tend to look at the 5 ways of attack as, oh, let me try PIA and see if it works against this guy. Oh, no, it doesn't. Okay, let me try PIA. Let me try hand immobilization attack and see if it works against this guy. Oh, yes, it did. Okay, great. Look, the 5 ways of attack worked. And that's not the way to look at the 5 ways. We feel you're supposed to attack with all 5. Now, when we say attack with all 5, that's a pretty heady understanding. I don't sit there and say attack with all 5 at the same time. I say you attack or move forward with the intention that all 5 are going to work for you. And you have to understand why there's 5. That there's a reason why there's 5. There's not 4, there's not 6, and it's on purpose. And it's not because 5 is a lucky number. Jeet Kune Do, in its design phase, Bruce Lee said that what separated Jeet Kune Do from the other martial arts that he knew about was that he had 5 roots to his opponent. And he said it with the understanding that having 6, 7, and 8 roots to your opponent was not a good thing. Having 5 was, because 5 is exactly what you needed. And why did he feel that way? So, to understand why you have 5, you have to understand the nature of a fight. I know if you guys train with Anthony, you're fighters. You get it. I understand that. So indulge me here with a little bit. This is my kind of talk that I give to people that when they start training with me at a higher level, that I bring them through this mental exercise, which I'll just walk through with you guys. I understand that you're all fighters, and a lot of this may be old news to you, but give me 5 more minutes of your time, and I'm hoping you'll appreciate it. When you throw a punch at an opponent, let's just, you throw a punch at an opponent, one of 4 things can happen, and that's it. It's one of 4 things. You can hit them. They could block or cover. They could move, either to the side, move back, things to that effect. Or they could hit you back. Yeah, there's a million variations of each, and that's why fighting is hard. But it really, when you boil down to it, it's one of four things. You hit the guy, he blocks or covers, he moves, or he tries to hit you back. And when you look at those four things and say, okay, these are the four possibilities, now the five ways take shape. You hit the guy. Oh, just keep fucking hitting him. You're fighting a tomato can. This is not a problem. You move in, boom, you hit the guy. Oh, I can hit him some more. Just go to town. You don't need the five ways of attack. But now you go and hit the guy, and he blocks. So when you think of blocks and covering, you want to think of like the idea of did your opponent move the object of the strike, head movement, or did he try and move the projectile? Blocks, whether it's a bong sao, dan sao, some sort of hard karate block, or did the opponent cover? So you ever throw a jab at a guy, and he covers. These are all little variances that you as a fighter have to understand quickly. So you throw a punch at a guy, and he blocks. So what we say blocks is he tries to move the projectile, or he tries to move the target and the projectile. Right there, hand immobilization attack. If he tries to move the projectile, he's creating this bridge, and we're going to now go hand immobilization attack. But let's say he just covers. You throw a punch, boom, he covers and wants to come back at you, right? So he covers. On the initial cover is when now you're going to take a different line with attack by combination. So you throw a punch at the guy, boom, he throws bong sao. Let's just say he throws bong sao. You know you have the bridge hand immobilization attack. You throw a jab at the guy, he covers. If he covers, he's now opened up a line to his face, sideline, right? So he comes and you're taking a hook punch. You start going to combinations. Or let's say you go to throw the jab and he moves. He scoots to his right. So now when you come in, he's moving. You're going to come with a rear leg roundhouse kick, round kick, whatever you want to call it. Hooking type kick. He's now be moving into your leg. You're going to use progressive indirect attack. Or you make an aggressive movement and he counters with a jab. It's a JKD, right? You find a guy who's really good at JKD. Here's where you use attack by drawing. Those are four of the five ways. And if you notice, those four of the five ways work on something. They work on a reaction of your opponent. They work on how your opponent reacts to your emotions. Now, what's a reaction? A reaction is an involuntary nervous response to an outside stimulus, right? You throw a jab, and this guy either covers from the jab, tries to block the jab, move, or come back at you. These are something he does. Now, I know everybody, and I mean everybody in martial arts says, well, I never do the same thing twice. Bullshit. They all do the same thing twice. They never do the same thing twice in sparring. Because in sparring, they're there with their buddy, they got headgear on, they got a mouthpiece in, they know they're not getting hurt, so they try new shit. When you're in a fight, and somebody is trying to punch you in the face that wants to fucking hurt you, trust me, your body's going to move the way it's been trained to move. And it's going to move that same way over and over and over again because it's in survival mode, which is a lot different than a sparring match. So when we look at how an opponent reacts to our emotions, and we've already established that there's only certain things that can happen in a fight, you'll understand where four of the five ways come to be, right? You have that hand immobilization attack against a blocker, attack by combination against a guy who covers, progressive indirect attack against a guy who uses movement, and attack by drawing against a guy who's a counter fighter. But Bruce Lee always said that the most advanced of the five ways was a simple direct attack. Notice I didn't say single direct attack, it's a simple direct attack. Or simple angulated attack, which is basically the same thing. That was the most advanced. And why is it the most advanced? Well, because it required the most amount of training to pull off. And it works on a different set of criteria than the other four. The other four worked on your opponent's reactions. And by reactions, we said, like, you move a certain way, he reacts, and you capitalize upon that reaction. Simple attack, either simple direct attack or simple angulated attack, works off your opponent's habits. Now, a habit is different than a reaction. A habit is done independent of an outside stimulus. A reaction is you throw a jab, he reacts. A habit is when he steps forward, he unconsciously drops his lead hand a little bit. You see, you got guys, you're moving around with a guy, and as he steps forward, he kind of drops his lead hand a little bit. Or right before he throws a punch, he sucks in air. You know, or tightens up his face. right before. These are habits that most oftentimes people don't even realize they have. What simple attack is for capitalize upon people's bad habits. And you draw out these bad habits. So if I was moving with Anthony, right, I'm moving with your Sifu, and then let's pretend that Anthony has a bad habit. Let's say that he drops his lead hand every time he takes a step forward. And I notice this, and you're going to notice it. If you're trained to look for this stuff, you're going to notice it, and you're going to notice it very quick. Because a habit is a habit is a habit. People do it. They don't realize they're doing it. So within half a second, I see when Anthony steps in a little bit, he drops his lead hand. My job now is to capitalize upon that habit. What can I do to capitalize upon that bad habit? Well, if Anthony drops his lead hand when he steps forward, my goal is to get him to step forward. But he has to step forward in a way that I can capitalize upon it. So if he's stepping forward due to my aggression, well, then we're dealing with something else. We're dealing with a reaction. But let's say I take a little half step back, and now to keep the fighting measure the same, Anthony adjusts and steps forward. And as he's stepping forward, that lead hand comes down. Well, now I know what's going to happen, right? I know that Anthony, when he steps forward, that lead hand's going down. And I know when it's going to happen because I know what happens once I step back. He covers the distance to keep the fighting measure. I take this like half step back, and then as he's stepping in, as the lead hand is going down, I now attack into now the opening line. See, another aspect of this is we have to get comfortable with the idea of attacking into an opening line rather than an open line. Opening lines are lines that we create. The opponent doesn't realize we're creating this opening line. Just think about it this way. If you were going to take a rock and you want to throw it through a window, but like not break the window, and so you were going to have your partner open a window and then close it, and you have to safely throw this rock through the open window without breaking the glass. Would you want to throw the rock when it's open and he sees the rock coming and is now closing it? Or would you want to throw the rock when he's still opening the window, then you release it, so now he has to change direction to close it? Of course you want to do it to an opening window as opposed to an open window. It's the same thing with an opponent. You want to create an opening and attack while the opening is still in the opening process. Because once you see an opening, it's already too late. Because he can probably close his opening before you can get through it. So you have to create these openings and attack while they're opening. And this is only done through sparring and training. Sparring and training hard. So what you have to do is you kind of create scenarios. You sit there and you say, okay, I'm going to throw this jab at you, And I want you to be a blocker. I want you to be a guy who covers. I want you to be a guy who moves. I want you to be a counterfighter. Okay, I want you to have this bad habit. And you got to train how to capitalize upon all these habits. And you'll come to see that a lot more stuff plays into this. This idea of habits, reactions, preferences, ability level. You know, you're going to learn to establish really quick what a person's preferences are. What do they think they are? You know, you get up there to, spar your buddy, and he comes up with his Muay Thai stance, and you think, all right, this guy, his preference is Muay Thai. Or, he has a serious Kung Fu stance. He thinks he's a Kung Fu fighter. He has a preference for that. You have to quickly establish his ability level. Is he any good at it? And I can guarantee you that it's something you will be able to do. I'm sure that the second Anthony lines up against a boxer, I say Anthony, I should be saying Sifu Anthony, right? Okay, the second Sifu lines up against a boxer, he's got boxing experience. He's been sparring for fucking 25 years. He can tell immediately if this guy is actually a boxer or if it's somebody that's been hitting a heavy bag in his basement for 20 years. You'll get to know what someone's ability level is very quickly. So all this has to go into your decision making. It's almost like this series of drop down boxes in your head that has to happen instantaneously. And this idea of habits, reactions, preferences, and ability levels will give us the ability to read our opponents. And we have to, the way we move and manipulate them, we need to give our opponent a full sense of security, a full sense of distance, a full sense of rhythm, and establish tempos and break those tempos, and use this series of strategy to get in on our guy, So that's my little primer about the 5 ways of attack. There's a lot more. But I think that's it for right now. I think I'll give you a lot to think about. If anybody has any questions, feel free to hit me up on Facebook or ask them to Anthony, Sifu Anthony. Anthony can contact me, and we can I can answer questions. I'll do anything I can do to help you guys. I love Anthony, and I want to make sure if I can do anything to help his guys, that's the best. But in the future, I'm going to make more of these because I want to cover the idea of distance control, timing, rhythm, and get into much more depth on the 5 ways of attack, because this is where the beauty of Jeet Kune Do lies. It's in distance, timing, rhythm, and the 5 ways of attack. So good luck, folks, and if you have any questions, just let me know.